My sister-in-law filmed my son having a meltdown and laughed. My mother-in-law told me to calm down. 3 days later, I made one phone call that unraveled everything they thought they'd built. Let me back up. My son Jasper is 7. He has sensory processing disorder, which means certain textures, sounds, and unexpected physical contact can send him into a spiral that looks to people who don't understand it like a tantrum. It is not a tantrum. I have spent 4 years learning the difference, attending therapy sessions with him, reading everything I could find, adjusting our entire home environment so he feels safe. His occupational therapist, Dr. R. Wren, not that Wren, a different one, has called him one of the most resilient kids she's worked with. I have put my whole heart into making sure Jasper knows that the way his brain works is not a flaw. It is just different. My husband Rowan's family has never fully accepted this. His mother, who I will call my mother-in-law because I stopped using her first name after what happened, has referred to Jasper's condition as a phase approximately 47 times since his diagnosis. I stopped correcting her around the 30th time because the correction never landed and I was tired of performing patients I didn't feel. Rowan's younger sister, I'll call her my sister-in-law, is 26, lives at home still, and has a channel on social media where she posts what she describes as real family moments. She has around 12,000 followers. She considers this a career. I have asked her politely 3 separate times not to film Jasper without my permission. The first time she said, of course. The second time she said I was being oversensitive. The third time she said, kids need to learn the world isn't going to accommodate them forever, which is not a sentence a 26-year-old with no children should be saying to me about my neurodivergent 7-year-old, but I let it go because Rowan asked me to and I was trying to keep the peace. The peace was not worth keeping. In March, Rowan's family hosted a graduation party for his cousin. I'll call her the cousin, who had finished her nursing degree. It was held at my mother-in-law's house, which is a large, loud, overwhelmingly stimulating environment under the best of circumstances. There were balloons, a DJ setup in the backyard, approximately 30 adults. Jasper didn't know well, and a dessert table with metallic streamers hanging from it that caught the light every time someone walked past. I had prepared Jasper. We talked about it the night before. We did his breathing exercises in the car on the way over. I brought his noise-canceling headphones and the small weighted lap pad he likes. I told him we would stay for 1 hour, maybe 90 minutes, and then we would leave, and that was a promise I intended to keep. For the first 40 minutes, things were fine. Jasper sat with me at a table near the edge of the yard. He had his headphones on. He was eating a plate of fruit and watching a family friend's golden retriever wander between people's legs. He was okay. Then someone turned the music up. I don't know whose decision that was. What I know is that the bass shifted and suddenly Jasper wasn't okay anymore. He pulled his headphones off. Sometimes the pressure of them becomes its own problem when he's already escalating. And I could see from his face that we had maybe 2 minutes before the window closed. I stood up. I said, okay, buddy, we're going to go find a quiet spot. I reached for his hand. What happened next took about 4 seconds. My sister-in-law appeared from my left. She was holding her phone up, recording. She said, loudly in the voice she uses for content, "Oh, and here comes the famous meltdown." Jasper heard her. He looked at the phone. He saw his own face in the screen. And then everything I had been managing so carefully for 40 minutes came apart all at once. He screamed. Not the escalating kind I can sometimes redirect, the full body, past the point of return kind. He knocked the fruit plate off the table. He dropped to his knees on the grass and put his hands over his ears and screamed again, and 30 people turned to look, and my sister-in-law kept filming, and she was smiling. I got down on the ground with him. I put my body between him and the phone. I said the things I always say, the low, steady words that sometimes reach him when nothing else does. I was not thinking about anyone else in that moment. I was thinking only about my son. When he started to come down, when the screaming broke into crying and he let me hold him, I looked up. My sister-in-law was still holding up the phone. I stood up. I walked the 4 steps to where she was standing. I said very quietly, "Stop filming my son." She lowered the phone maybe 2 inches. She said, "Relax. It's going to get so many views." I took the phone out of her hand. I am not proud of what I did next, but I am also not going to pretend I regret it. I deleted the video. Not just from her camera roll. I went into recently deleted and cleared it from there too. It took about 15 seconds. Then I handed the phone back. She stared at me like I had slapped her. My mother-in-law appeared from somewhere behind me. She said, "What is going on?" My sister-in-law said I had grabbed her phone and deleted her content. My mother-in-law looked at me. Then she looked at Jasper, who was still crying softly against my shoulder. Then she looked back at me and said, "You're causing a scene at your cousin's graduation party." I want to sit with that sentence for a moment, because I have thought about it many times since. Not, is Jasper okay? Not, what happened? The concern, the very first concern that came out of her mouth, was about the party. I said, "Your daughter was filming my son during a meltdown to post on the internet." My mother-in-law said, "She films everything. That's just how she is." I picked up Jasper's weighted lap pad from the table. I picked up his headphones. I said, "We're leaving." Rowan was inside getting drinks. He came out just as I was walking Jasper through the back gate. He saw my face and he knew. He didn't ask questions until we were in the car. Jasper buckled in the back with his headphones on and his eyes closed, the particular exhausted stillness that follows one of his big moments. On the drive home, I told Rowan everything. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll talk to them. I have heard 'I'll talk to them' before. I know what it produces." It produces a phone call with his mother that ends with him looking tired, and a text from my sister-in-law that says something like, "I didn't mean anything by it," and then 3 weeks of politeness before everything resets to baseline. I nodded. I didn't say anything else, but I had already started thinking. When we got home and Jasper was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, and I looked up exactly what my rights were. In our state, recording a minor and publishing that footage without parental consent is a violation, not a gray area, a clear one. There are also laws around using a child's likeness for commercial gain, and my sister-in-law monetizes her channel. 12,000 followers and brand partnerships and a merch link in her bio. Whatever she was planning to do with that video, it was not purely personal. I also called Jasper's occupational therapist the next morning. I explained what had happened. She said I could quote her if needed, that deliberately triggering a child's known sensory sensitivities while recording the reaction for public consumption was something she would be obligated to document and report if she witnessed it in a professional context. She used the words exploitation and psychological harm. She offered to write a formal letter. I said I would be in touch. Rowan's conversation with his family did not go well. I knew this because he came home from it looking like someone had taken something from him. He said his mother thought I was overreacting. He said his sister had sent him a screenshot of the view count on a different video she posted. Apparently, she had filmed me walking out with Jasper, just a few seconds of it from a distance, and posted it with a caption about family drama, and that it had gotten 4,000 views in 2 days. I asked him to read me the caption. He didn't want to. I waited. He read it. "When the in-law makes everything about her kid again." I felt something go very flat and very quiet inside me. I said, "Okay." Rowan said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I know. This isn't about you." And then I made the phone call I had been thinking about since I sat at the kitchen table. I called the attorney. Her name is Ms. Okafor, and she is a family and media law attorney I had consulted once before about an unrelated matter. I explained everything. I explained Jasper's diagnosis and the event in the video that had been posted. I explained the monetization. I explained that my sister-in-law had a documented pattern of filming Jasper despite being asked not to. Miss Okafor listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "This is actually a fairly strong case." She sent a cease and desist letter to my sister-in-law within 48 hours. My sister-in-law called Rowan screaming. My mother-in-law called Rowan screaming. His father, who I have always found difficult to read, called Rowan and said, very calmly, that I needed to understand I was tearing the family apart. I was tearing the family apart, me, by protecting my child from being monetized. The letter required the immediate removal of the video, acknowledgement that no footage of Jasper would be posted or recorded without written parental consent going forward, and notification that further violations would result in formal legal proceedings. Miss Okafor also noted, in language that was polite but extremely clear, that the prior refusal to comply with verbal requests was documented and would be relevant in any future action. The video came down within 6 hours. My sister-in-law did not apologize. What she did instead was post a vague grievance about toxic family members who weaponized the legal system to silence people, which I screenshotted, forwarded to Miss Okafor, and did not respond to publicly. Privately, I felt something I'm not entirely proud of, which was satisfaction. Not in her pain exactly, in the fact that I'd done something real instead of just being hurt. The fallout within the family was significant. My mother-in-law stopped speaking to me directly. She would communicate through Rowan, asking things like whether they would be attending Sunday dinner, whether they needed anything for Jasper's upcoming school event. Rowan, to his credit, started responding, "You can ask her yourself." She never did. The cousin, the one whose graduation party it had been, texted me privately about 2 weeks after the letter. She said she was sorry about what happened. She said she had not known until that day how bad things had gotten with the filming situation, and that watching my sister-in-law laugh while Jasper was on the ground had made her feel sick. She said she had tried to say something to her aunt, my mother-in-law, and been told to stay out of it. She said she just wanted me to know that not everyone felt the way they did. I cried reading that. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I had been so braced for the family closing ranks that I had not left any room for the possibility that someone might see it clearly. What I didn't know yet, and what I found out about 6 weeks later, is that my sister-in-law had not stopped. She had posted a second video. She was more careful this time. No footage of Jasper, no direct mention of him by name. Instead, she posted a story time video from her car, where she described, in detail and with clear identifying context, a family member's child who had ruined multiple family events because the parents refused to teach him how to behave in public. She said that she had tried to be supportive but had been attacked. She cried on camera. She got 20,000 views. The comment section was full of people saying things about bad parenting and coddling and how kids like that shouldn't be brought to family events. Rowan found it first. He came to me and he looked, for the first time in our marriage, genuinely broken, not sad, broken. He said, "I don't know how to fix this." I said, "You don't have to fix it." I called Ms. Okafor. The second letter was not a cease and desist. It was a formal notice of intent to file suit. The grounds were defamation. The video, while not using Jasper's name, used enough specific detail to be identifiable to anyone who knew the family, and violation of the terms outlined in the first letter, which had explicitly prohibited content referencing Jasper in any capacity. Miss Okafor also contacted the brand partners whose products appeared in my sister-in-law's recent videos. She did not threaten them. She simply made them aware that they were currently associated with an account involved in an active legal dispute involving a minor with a disability. 3 of the 4 brand deals disappeared within a week. My sister-in-law's channel went quiet after that. The storytime video came down. She has not posted anything about family since. Here is what I want to say about my mother-in-law, because I think it matters. She is not a monster. That would almost be easier. She is a woman who grew up in a time and a place where children were expected to adjust to the world, full stop, and where any deviation from that was a reflection of the parents' failure. She genuinely believes, I think, that if I just parented differently, Jasper would be different. She has never said this out loud to me, but I can feel it in every interaction. The way she watches him at family events, the way she looks at me when he struggles. Not with cruelty exactly, with something more like disappointed certainty. I don't hate her for it. I am sad for her, because she has a grandson who is, genuinely, one of the most wonderful people I have ever known. He knows the names of every dinosaur that ever existed. He can tell you which direction a river flows based on which side the moss grows on trees. He makes up songs about things that make him happy and sings them to himself when he's doing puzzles. He is kind in a way that is not performative because he doesn't yet understand performance. When he loves you, you feel it in a completely unfiltered way that most adults have lost access to. She is missing that because she cannot get past what she expected him to be. That's her loss. I've made my peace with it. Rowan and I went to couples counseling for a few months after all of this, not because we were in crisis, but because I wanted us to be on the same page about what we were building and what we were protecting. He has a good therapist individually, too. He's been doing the harder work of figuring out what it means to love his family of origin and still hold a line with them. It is not easy. I watch him do it and I respect him more than I can say. We have not attended a family event since March. My mother-in-law called last month, actually called me on my phone for the first time in almost a year. She said she had been thinking. She said she wanted to try. She did not apologize exactly, but she said she understood that she had not responded the way she should have at the party, and she asked if we could start over. I told her the truth, which is that starting over wasn't really an option because there's too much that happened to pretend there's a blank slate. But I said moving forward was possible. I said I needed to see things be different before I brought Jasper back into that environment. I said Rowan and I would have coffee with her and his father sometime soon and we could talk about what that looked like. She cried a little. I let her. My sister-in-law and I have not spoken. I don't know if we will. Ms. O'Coffer has the situation documented, and I know what to do if anything changes. Jasper started second grade 2 months ago. His teacher emailed me last week to say that he had spent a free choice period explaining to 3 classmates exactly how the bioluminescence in deep-sea fish works, and that the other kids had been completely riveted. She said, I just wanted you to know he's finding his people. I read that email 4 times. There is a version of the story I used to tell myself where I was the one who had to protect Jasper from a world that didn't understand him, and that framing made me tired in a way that was hard to explain. Because protection is exhausting when it's all there is. What I know now, watching him find his people in the 2nd grade, watching him sing songs to himself about things that make him happy, is that my job was never only protection. My job was to make sure no one took away his chance to be exactly who he is long enough for the world to catch up to him. The world is catching up, and nobody with a phone and a comments section gets to take that from him. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in that backyard, not the surface version, not woman deletes video, family gets upset, the real thing underneath it. Because what my sister-in-law did wasn't just careless. It was a choice. She saw a 7-year-old boy on the ground with his hands over his ears, and she decided that moment was content. She pointed a camera at his pain and smiled. That's not a mistake you make by accident. That's something you have to actively choose. And what my mother-in-law did afterward, shrugging, saying, that's just how she is, that was a choice too. A quieter one, but just as deliberate. Because that's just how she is what people say when they've decided that keeping the peace matters more than telling the truth. It's a way of making someone else absorb a harm they had no part in creating. I absorbed a lot of those harms over the years. I kept absorbing them because I thought that's what you do for family. What I understand now is that absorbing harm without consequence doesn't protect anyone. It just teaches the person causing it that they can keep going. I didn't delete that video because I was angry, though I was. I didn't call Ms. Okafor because I wanted to punish my sister-in-law, though the consequences were real. I did those things because Jasper was going to grow up in a world that already had complicated feelings about the way his brain worked, and I was not going to let the first lesson he learned be that the people who were supposed to love him most thought his worst moments were entertainment. That's the part that took me a while to say clearly, even to myself. It wasn't about the video, it was about what the video meant. It meant, we see you struggling and we think it's funny. It meant, your pain is useful to us. A child can absorb that message before he has words for it. I was not going to let Jasper absorb it. Rowan did something hard during all of this. He held a line with people he had loved his whole life, and he did it without drama, without ultimatums, without making me feel like I was the problem. That kind of quiet integrity is rarer than it sounds. I don't take it for granted. What I keep coming back to is this: the people in that yard who looked away, who said nothing, who later called me the one tearing the family apart. None of them did anything wrong in a single dramatic moment. It was all accumulation. Small choices stacked up over years. The choice not to say, stop filming him. The choice not to check if he was okay before worrying about the party. The choice to platform a narrative that made me the villain rather than reckon with what actually happened. Those small choices built something, and then one day the thing they built was large enough that I couldn't pretend it wasn't there anymore. I think about that when I'm impatient with slow change, with Rowan's mother trying, haltingly, to find a way forward, with the cousin who texted me privately, who couldn't say anything out loud in the moment but found her words later. Change doesn't always arrive as a single clear turning point. Sometimes it's just a person one morning sitting with what they've done and deciding they don't want to keep doing it. I can work with that. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for honesty and the willingness to try. Jasper sang me a song last week. It was about tectonic plates. I don't know how to explain what it feels like to watch him be fully, unguardedly himself, to watch him pour everything he loves into something without once looking around to check if anyone is laughing. That's what I was protecting. That right there.